I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report. The rapidly growing area of regenerative medicine is promising to replace chronic therapies with cures. As the biotechnology industry gathers in San Francisco for a big week of meetings, the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine is readying to deliver its annual State of the Industry briefing. We spoke to Edward Lanphier, President and CEO of Sangamo Biosciences and the newly elected chairman of the Alliance, about the transformation of medicine that's underway, the particular excitement among investors in industry over gene therapy, and why he's confident payers are ready to embrace the new technology.
Ed, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Danny.
Well, and congratulations on being elected chairman of the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to it. I guess I'm all of 6 days into my my tenure, but been a member of ARM and active in ARM for several years, and I'm both honored and looking forward to being the chairman this year.
Well, we're going to talk about the state of regenerative medicine, the excitement around gene therapy in particular, as well as what's happening at your own company, Sangamo Biosciences. The Alliance for Regenerative Medicine holds its State of the Industry briefing in San Francisco January 12th in conjunction with the 2015 Biotech Showcase, part of what the J.P. Morgan Week in San Francisco has become. Maybe we can begin with regenerative medicine itself. What does this include, and how significant is it in terms of sales and pipeline today?
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating and really one of the fastest growing areas of all of biotechnology right now, Denny. The regenerative medicine, and I think we'd add to that advanced therapies space, in which ARM is the principal industry organization and Washington-based representative group, encompasses a couple of major technology categories. Certainly the cell therapy space, which are the origins of ARM in stem cells and iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells, tissue engineering and biomaterials that really support the clinical development of these autologous cell-based therapies. More recently, and there's been an enormous amount of growth both from an industry perspective and in ARM in the gene therapy area, as well as in the genetically modified cell therapy areas. And those scientific disciplines or approaches really are the basis for the companies that are involved. And of course, ARM is also a multi-constituency organization which brings to bear not only companies, but also patient advocacy groups, research organizations, and health insurers, and not just small companies, but also some of the big biotechs and big pharmas.
So I do think a lot of people still think of regenerative medicine as a thing of the future, but can you give us some sense of the industry today in terms of its size and in terms of, say, sales or pipeline?
Yeah, no, happy to. I know people do think about it as sort of a small area, but at this point, there are over 500 companies worldwide in the regenerative medicine advanced therapy space. Over 200 of those companies actually are ARM members. They break out, as you might imagine, in about 300 plus, 330 are cell therapy companies, about 180 are in the tissue engineering space, and about 150 are in this newer area of gene therapy and modified cell therapies. And of those 500 companies, there are now over 40 approved products that are in this, are coming from these technologies. And there are now, as of the end of last year, there may even be more in the last several days, but there are over 650 ongoing clinical trials in the space. So there's a lot of activity, both from a development perspective, but also from a commercial perspective. And looking forward, we expect to see significant clinical milestones in 2015 and 2016 in the phase 3 and in the approval areas. Not to keep babbling, Denny, but just in that regard, I'm sure you noted that the first gene therapy product, in vivo gene therapy product, was approved in Europe. This is approved for a company called Unicure, which is in the adeno-associated viral vector space, or AAV space. And there's also been significant progress on the modified cell therapy side, probably most notably two areas. Bluebird Bio has taken autologous CD34 stem cells and in patient populations of beta thalassemia shown that they can modify those cells, reinfuse them, and cause those patients to become transfusion independent. Really moving towards the goal of broadly of regenerative medicine and gene therapy, which aren't just novel treatments, but curative outcomes.
Well, as you get ready for your for your briefing, what kind of a year was 2014 for regenerative medicine?
Well, it was a historic year. I mean, a high water mark, and actually, I think still going at multiple levels on the product development side of things. Just to tick off a few, I mentioned Bluebird's data in beta thalassemia. One of the other areas of enormous visibility is the cancer immunotherapy space, the so-called CAR T-cell area, which has numerous companies, Novartis, Juno, Kite, and others who have been very active in the area, both from a data presentation perspective, but also from a financing perspective. Mesoblast launched the first cell therapy product in Japan to treat graft versus host disease in the fourth quarter of this year. And speaking of Japan, Denny, and this is something that I think it's important for people in the U.S. to begin to understand, is this is a global area and a global technology, and Japan has really pushed the ball forward dramatically in their legislation that expedite conditional approval of regenerative medicine and cell therapy products. And the ARM organization and many of ARM's members are looking actively at developing products and moving clinical trials to Japan because of the rapid pace of conditional approvals and therefore commercialization that can occur. So it's definitely an area of global development right now.
Well, you've alluded to this, but it's certainly a big year for gene therapy in particular. Seems to be growing investor enthusiasm, some exciting clinical results. As someone who's been at this for a long time, do you notice a change? And what would you say the state of gene therapy is as far as what's catalyzing the enthusiasm that we're seeing build in 2014?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you go back, even as frequent or as recently as 24 to 36 months, there were sectors in the pharmaceutical community and the investor community where the words gene therapy were almost toxic, and that has changed 180 degrees. There is enormous enthusiasm from a venture perspective, from a public investor perspective, and from a pharmaceutical perspective. And I think what's really changed over that period of time is the perception, based upon data, that gene therapy, the introduction of DNA into cells, is a way of generating not just novel treatments or better treatments, but the potential for curative outcomes. And while there are multiple examples of this, including Glybera out of Unicure and some of the data in factor 9, hemophilia B, showing long-term persistence of factor 9 expression, there's a broad-based appreciation that the next real platform for both rare diseases as well as some of the larger diseases, oncology, cardiovascular disease, degenerative neurological diseases, can be and will be addressed by the introduction of DNA into specific areas of the body and expression of those sequences in a way that not just to treat the disease or mask some of the symptoms of the disease, but directly at a biological level address what's malfunctioning or what is missing in that situation that causes the disease. So I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for this right now.
Well, one of the things that happened this year was the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine merged with its European sister organization, the Alliance for Advanced Therapies. What was the thinking here in terms of the need for a unified global voice, and what do you expect this will enable you to do?
Well, you're exactly right with the question. It's a unified global voice, and I think the shared issues between Europe and the United States are almost 100% in terms of the kinds of issues that we're dealing with from a regulatory perspective, from a government relations perspective, from a reimbursement perspective, from a communications perspective. So there is almost a hand-in-glove fit with the kinds of challenges that our colleagues in Europe face and the companies in the U.S. And I really won't stop there. There's, as I said, there's an enormous amount of activity in this space in Japan, in Asia, broadly, and it continues to make sense for ARM to be a coordinating organization, an organization at the hub of the spokes to help harmonize some of the policies and regulatory criteria and standards that exist for these technologies.
On the legislative front in the United States, the Alliance saw the Regenerative Medicine Promotion Act of 2014 introduced in the U.S. Senate. That's an effort to create a multi-agency regenerative medicine coordinating council and a detailed assessment of federal activities in regenerative medicine, as well as have progress compared to national programs in other countries. Is there a lack of a coherent U.S. policy around regenerative medicine? And is it difficult to coordinate and understand what work is underway through the various agencies?
Well, there is a lack of coordination, and I won't put it on those agencies to say it's not out of lack of interest. We've had good and ongoing discussions with CMS, CDC, the FDA, across lots of these topics. I think the real need is to bring together these organizations under an umbrella where these kinds of discussions can occur. And so, and you outlined it perfectly. The Regenerative Medicine Promotion Act has really been a very useful vehicle for ARM to have these discussions, to gain that support from those agencies, to gain that support on the Hill. And while there's enormous, I think, progress on that, the potential new vehicle for that is really this 21st Century Cures initiative, which Senator Upton and others are championing. And I think that offers a broad-based vehicle, not only for regenerative medicine, but as the title of the bill suggests, curative therapies, and the kind of regulatory infrastructure, reimbursement guidance, as well as broader based national strategy and funding. Again, not terribly different than what Japan has been able to pull together in order to generate this new regenerative medicine law in Japan. So I think the Regenerative Medicine Promotion Act has served as a great vehicle, and potentially the 21st Century Cures initiative will be a way to push this forward into a bill that can be approved. So
while I've got you here, I'm hoping you can update us on some developments with Sangamo and its lead programs in HIV and Alzheimer's. How are these progressing, and what are you learning?
Sure, heard of that company. Yeah, things are going great, Danny. Thanks for asking. We have a lot of ongoing activities we're going to be updating next week, actually on Monday at JP Morgan, right after I give the State of the Industry update on ARM. And we'll be talking a lot about our pipeline, including the HIV data. We're in the phase 2 trials of our HIV T-cell program. We'll be starting clinical trials of our HIV program in stem cells, as well as our beta thalassemia program in stem cells in early 2015. And we're on track to file multiple INDs around our genome editing platform, both for our own account as well as with our partners Shire and Biogen IDEC. So an awful lot of progress activity. We've benefited largely from the science that we've been working on, but also from the climate. As we've talked about earlier, we've been successful in raising nearly $200 million over the last 18 months, and it's been a time where we've seen very, very significant progress with our technology and our clinical data.
So I know you released preclinical data on Huntington's disease as well as hemophilia and lysosomal storage disorders. Are these things we're going to see moving into the clinic in 2015?
Yes. Those are all things that we hope to move forward, both with new INDs and then initiating clinical studies in 2015 and 2016, more of the same in 2016.
So how close are we seeing gene therapy move us away from requiring lifelong sustenance therapy to really having cures?
Well, that is the goal, Danny, and the couple of things I referenced earlier, the Bluebird work in beta thalassemia, the Unicure work with AAV, the Factor IX work with AAV, I think are the early glimpses of what gene therapy and gene-modified cell therapies can offer in terms of, again, not just durable treatments, but long-term and potentially permanent cures for these diseases. And back to Sangamo, that's absolutely in the bullseye of precisely what we're working on. Not novel therapies, but durable, permanent cures that we believe could be fundamentally important in terms of patient benefit, but also from a commercial perspective, extraordinarily disruptive to very well established chronic therapies such as lysosomal storage diseases and the hemophilias.
Well, certainly one of the big issues the industry faced in 2014 was pricing, and that only seems to be intensifying with this new therapeutic paradigm and the movement from treatments to cures. How is that discussion with payers and policymakers taking shape? Have you had conversations with payers and any read on how much of an obstacle they'll represent for the industry?
Well, I think payers, to put on my rose-colored glasses, and actually view this as a great positive. Right now, take whatever protein replacement therapy you like, Factor VIII, Factor IX, Gaucher's. Patients and insurers are paying hundreds of thousands, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year for the product that keeps these patients healthy. What if you could come to that payer with a well-controlled clinical trial that says with a single treatment, we can give this child the kind of normal protein expression that somebody who does not have this disease has? What would that be worth? And if you think about the lifetime therapy of a 2-year-old boy on Factor VIII, there's enormous value to the insurer. There's enormous value to the payer. Heck, there's enormous value to this country in terms of overall healthcare costs and reducing those costs. So it's an engaged and very positive discussion that we're having with CMS, with private insurers, because of the ability of these one-time curative therapies to generate enormous value to the patient, but potentially very significant value in savings to the overall healthcare costs.
And if you're interested in attending the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine's Regenerative Medicine and Advanced Therapies State of the Industry briefing, it'll be held at 8 a.m. at the Park 55 Wyndham in San Francisco in conjunction with the 2015 Biotech Showcase. More information can be found on the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine's website. Ed Lanphier, President and CEO of Sangamo Biosciences and the newly elected Chairman of the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine. Ed, thanks as always.
Danny, my pleasure.
A few housekeeping notes before we go. Over on Rarecast this week, you can hear Alain Gannot, a former J.P. Morgan hedge fund manager turned biotech CEO, discuss the search for a cure for his son's rare disease. That goes live January 9th. We'd also like to note the passing of Ron Cape, co-founder of Cetus, the world's first biotechnology company. We'll be discussing Cape's legacy next week with historian Mark Jones on the Bio Report. Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send an email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.